Hi everyone, my name is Dorothy and I'm 16 years old. Tell me, do you know what a conspiracy theory is? Some people believe that we're being watched and controlled by some mysterious and powerful rulers. I hope you aren't one of them. Still, I want to tell you what my father's belief in one of these theories ended up costing our family. Subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to wear your foil hats. Our family seemed completely ordinary. My dad was a manager at a large firm, and my mom was an interior designer. Like all of my peers, I was going to school and I loved hanging out with my friends. I was closest with Susan. We even sat next to each other in class. My family lived at a house almost in the center of the city, which was very convenient. It was easy to get to places from there, whether it was the supermarket, my school, or Dad's job. But that wasn't the important thing about the house. There was a heavy metal door in our backyard that led underground. Have you guessed what was behind that door? That's right. At a depth of almost 7 meters, there was an actual bunker my dad had been building for years. He believed that one day, that bunker would save us. Of course, I didn't believe in any of that nonsense, but I couldn't tell him that. First of all, my mother was supportive of him. And secondly, it was my dad, and I respected him. However, one evening, something completely unexpected happened. We were doing chores at home when the TV program we'd been watching suddenly got interrupted by an urgent message from the mayor of our city. He declared that there was an emergency, saying that the strongest hurricane in all of history was heading toward our town. It had already wiped a few settlements off the face of the earth, and it was getting close to us now. The mayor asked the residents of the city to leave their homes and to get out of the city at once. My dad was overjoyed. He jumped up and said our time had come. We wouldn't be going anywhere, and we'd wait until the apocalypse had passed our bunker instead. My mother and I grabbed all the necessities and we ran in after him. The weather outside was already getting worse, and I felt so scared. We went down into the bunker and closed the door behind us. There was everything inside, and it would allow us to stay there for 2 years. There were food and water supplies, charged batteries and electric generators. Dad had even stocked up on books, music CDs, and downloaded hundreds of movies on the computer so we would have something to do during our long stay underground. We all waited and we listened to what was going on above us. There was no signal because of the thick bunker walls, so we couldn't call anyone or watch the news. We just sat and waited, and a day passed just like that, and then another. But nothing happened. I began to doubt that the hurricane had even reached our city. Maybe the mayor had made a mistake and we were actually safe. But suddenly, the bunker shook from a heavy impact. Something was going on up there. We were scared and we looked at the dust falling from the ceiling. Something hit the bunker several more times, and we heard some scratching noises. We were all thinking about how scary it would have been if we were up there, and I imagined that a real apocalypse was taking place. I thought, wow, there must only be ruins up there. I mean, a real hell was taking place where our city used to be, and it was all happening while we were sitting here, warm and safe. And that's how we came to live in a bunker. All day long, my parents would do their own thing, while I would sit in my room, eating snacks and watching TV shows. Day after day passed like that. I soon stopped counting how much time we'd spent in the bunker. Maybe days, or maybe months. My dad was just waiting for the disaster to be over so we could go back to a normal life. During that time, we heard several more bangs and screeching sounds from all around us. And a lot of time passed that way. We still had plenty of food and water, so we weren't worried about our future at all. The only thing that bothered us was we were running out of TV shows we hadn't watched yet. However, one day, just as we finished lunch, we heard a knock on the bunker door. It wasn't the hurricane making that sound. There was clearly someone alive and knocking at the door from the other side. My dad plucked up the courage and opened the door. Bright sunlight and fresh air flooded the bunker at once. It was so exciting. We saw a man outside the door. It was a policeman. We walked out of the bunker and we looked around. There was only a pile of rubble where our house used to be. Workers were clearing it away and building something new. There was an excavator standing nearby. It wasn't the apocalypse that I'd imagined, but something had obviously happened to our house.
Officer, I hope the hurricane is over now and we're all safe.
My dad asked. The policeman smiled cheerfully and said the hurricane had been terrifying, but everything would be fine now. He asked if there was anywhere we could go. Dad said we would stay at a hotel for a while. We walked through the town and looked at everything around us. but something seemed kind of strange to me. All the other houses in the city were intact. Maybe our house was just the last one to get rebuilt after the hurricane. Yeah, we got a large room at the hotel and finally ate a normal meal. I couldn't even look at canned food anymore. For the first time in so long, we could take a normal shower and spend the night in a comfortable bed. The next day, my parents went about their business and I called my friend Susan. As soon as she heard my voice, she asked, surprised, "Dorothy, where on earth have you been?" I told her I had a lot of news to share and I suggested we met up. Of course, she happily agreed. I told my parents I was going for a walk and that I wouldn't be back too late. I met Susan in the park. I hugged her and I told her how glad I was she was okay. My friend clearly didn't understand what I was talking about. We went to a cafe and I told Susan my incredible story about hiding in the bunker from the hurricane. My friend listened to me, looking worried, and then said, "Dorothy, I don't want to upset you, but there was no hurricane." I didn't understand what she was talking about. After all, the mayor had clearly said it would be getting closer to our town. Susan said that he'd apparently made a mistake. There had only been a faint breeze that couldn't have even destroyed a doghouse. This was all very suspicious. But what had we heard when we were sitting in the bunker? And what had happened to our house then? Susan said that just a few days after the mayor's message, construction equipment had driven up to our house and demolished it. That's what we had heard when we'd been sitting in the bunker. And everyone in the city had been told that we'd left our home and gone to another state. That was too much for me. I said goodbye to Susan and I ran to the place where our house used to stand. The workers had already dug a large hole in its place. They were now building something else. I asked one of them what was going to be there, and he said a shopping center would be there soon. Huh? How could that be? I was told that the mayor had bought the land and it was now his construction site. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. But the officer who brought us out of the bunker said that there'd been a hurricane that destroyed our house. So he lied to us. I rushed to the police station, which was nearby. When I ran into the station, I immediately found that officer and said I knew all about his lies. There was no hurricane, and our house had been demolished by order from the mayor. The policeman just didn't listen to me after that. He jumped up, grabbed me by the arm, and said we needed to talk to someone. I felt kind of scared. Who was he talking about? However, as soon as we arrived at the city hall, I understood everything. The mayor didn't look surprised to see me.
I suppose you already know everything.
He asked cheerfully. I got angry again and I demanded he give us our house back. The mayor simply smiled again and said that he'd wanted to buy our property legally, but my dad had flatly refused to sell it, saying that he'd been preparing a bunker there for the longest time. And that's when the mayor had resorted to trickery and come up with the story about the hurricane. And his plan had been successful. We'd hidden in the bunker and the mayor had taken advantage of our absence and taken the land for himself. Finally, he warned me not to tell anyone about it. And he added,
Not that it would matter if you did tell someone. No one would believe you anyway.
I rushed back to the hotel to tell my dad about this terrible deception. However, when I got there that night, I was horrified to find that my parents had moved out. How could this be? They hadn't even told me. The lady at the reception said my dad left a note for me. I opened it and read it.
Dorothy, come to this address at once.
It read. I felt so uneasy. What was going on and where was my dad sending me? I got into a taxi and asked them to take me to the house from the address. Apparently he was out of town, so I guess I had a long road ahead. I thought about everything that had happened on the way there. It really would have been impossible to believe if it hadn't happened to me. I was furious with my dad, though. Why was he so naive to believe that sort of nonsense? Because of that, we lost our home. We finally arrived at the house in the morning. The taxi stopped at a small, dilapidated house in the country. What immediately caught my attention was a heavy metal door next to the house, leading underground. What? Again? It opened and I saw my parents. They asked me to hurry. Unable to believe that I was doing this all over again, I still went underground with them. Once there, my dad told me that he'd bought the bunker with the last of his money, and we would live there now. I said I had to tell them the truth, that there was no hurricane, and our house had been demolished by the mayor of the city. But Dad just wouldn't listen to me. He said it didn't matter anymore. While we'd been staying at the hotel, he'd been carefully studying the latest news and he learned that a pandemic was raging in the world. And soon, everyone would be infected with a dangerous virus. So until that apocalypse was over, we would live here. Ugh. What should I do? I'm so angry with my father for his crazy ideas. And I just want to live like a normal person in a real house. But how do I tell my parents that? Please tell me your idea in the comments, because I don't think I'll be able to handle living for another 2 years underground.